And here I thought the only issue I thought I was going to have with this show was Faye's costume, and I was so wrong. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hi, my name is Zhariya Smith, and I typically make commentary videos just like this one. Today I'm so flabbergasted. Like, I'm honestly just like shocked. The amount of time and effort that I put into watching this show, really just trying to find, something positive, something good, has just frazzled me. And I'm not even going to tell you what time it is right now because I think you're just going to judge me. But I literally did just finish watching it. Today's candle is apple leather, and I think we just need to get into it. So 3, 2, 1, let's go. Hi. If you're a new person on my channel, you might not know that I love anime. I love anime so much, and I've watched anime since I was a little kid, and I'm pretty sure a lot of kids in my same age range have a similar core memory of falling asleep watching Cartoon Network and getting suddenly woken up to the intro to Cowboy Bebop at 3 o'clock in the morning. And while some kids just turned their TVs off and went back to sleep, my little happy self would just be like, oh yay, and I would sit and watch it. Cowboy Bebop to me has been one of my comfort shows. I wouldn't rank it in my top 10 anime. I wouldn't, say it's one of the best animes to come out. But for me personally, Cowboy Bebop was more so of a comfort anime. I will rewatch it pretty much once every year or sometimes once every 6 months, depending on how I'm feeling. But Cowboy Bebop is just one of those shows that I always just gravitate back to. I've always just been obsessed with it. And when I discovered that Netflix was making a adaptation, a remake, a reboot, whatever you want to call it, of Cowboy Bebop, I was so excited. And then I saw the pictures, and I will say anime has a tendency to make women be really over-sexualized, but I do think that at the bare minimum, she could have been wearing yellow shorts. Like, is that so hard? I understand, practicality, but she literally could have worn the yellow shorts, and I would have been like, oh, her costume kind of to me felt like whenever you're going to a Halloween party and you're trying to find a costume last minute, and you put it together and you're like, okay, I'm going to say that I'm faye. Anime is something that I have loved so much, and I was a little bit skeptical because we all saw Avatar: The Last Airbender movie fiasco that happened. We've seen Ghost in the Shell. I think it's really hard for people to kind of recreate animated things into live action things. It is so hard to recreate the feelings, recreate the nostalgia, recreate the action. It's just really hard. And I do commend Netflix. And I'm not just saying this because I want to be in a Netflix show one day, trying to tie up my loose ends. But I do really commend Netflix because I do think that while this isn't the absolute worst adaptation to be made, I do think that it is not the best. I don't even know if there is a best one, but I would say this is just a very mid. I actually kind of agree with Rotten Tomatoes score. I believe it was a 48. I think that's about accurate of this show. Like, honestly, the first 5 minutes of the show, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. They recreated the intro, not to the T, but to the best. I just loved it, and then it kept on going, and then I got past episode 1 and episode 2 and episode 3, and I was like, what is happening right now? So Spike Spiegel in the live action was played by John Cho, who is such an amazing actor. I do think that with the direction given as how it looks, he did a really good job, and I don't, want to say he's a horrible actor and he could never be Spike, because that's just, kind of mean. But Spike's character in the anime is such a semi-narcissistic, very, aloof, very just like sarcastic, just very much stuck in the past. Like, it's so calm and chill, but it's a little bit, like, Spike is such a character that, like, I feel like you look at, like, old anime and he's, like, the first person you think of, just very, like, calm, and he just feels like forever just, like, cool, calm, and collected. And I'm not saying that John Cho's version of Spike Spiegel is not that, but I do think that there was just some general issues I had with his character. Like, I was watching him and I'm like, yeah, this is definitely Spike, but it just didn't feel like Spike, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I will say that out of all the characters, though, that I'm going to be talking about, I would say that Spike is definitely one of the better anime to live action portrayals, because there are a lot that are so bad that I can't even begin with it. But speaking of that, next I want to talk about Jet Black. Now, I want to say, just off the bat, issue that I have is that, granted, I've watched Cowboy Bebop so many times. I don't even think I can count it on one hand the amount of times that I've watched that show, like, in completion. This isn't even counting when I was little, and I just watched sporadic episodes. Maybe I'm wrong in this, but do you guys remember Jet Black having a child? Because I don't, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this is just me reaching. I haven't watched Cowboy Bebop, actually. I think I rewatched it like 3 months ago, so maybe, my memory is hazy. I've watched so many anime between then and now. Maybe my mind is fuzzy, but I don't ever recall Jet Black having a child. I do remember him being obsessed with his ex, Alyssa, maybe, if that's her name. And there's a lot of issues I have with him. Honestly, I do think, though, that in terms of characters, he is the best. Like, anime to person, I think that despite there being a lot of changes in, like, the plot and changes in, stuff like that, I think that Jet is, like, the most, like, you can tell that he at least watched the anime, or at least did some research, like, he definitely, I think, and honestly, in my opinion, was the best at portraying his character. He's also a great actor. He was played by Mustafa Shakur. I hope that's how you pronounce it. I'm gonna feel real bad if it's not how you pronounce it. Great actor. And also, I love that they made Jet Black black. Like, I think that was honestly iconic. So, hats off to Netflix. But I honestly just feel like that his character, definitely being an ex-ISSP officer, I think the whole side plot of him having issues with his ex-wife and her new husband and the daughter that is his and her, like, it just kind of felt like, I feel like it took away from, like, what the show is meaning, because in my personal opinion, Cowboy Bebop is kind of about how all the characters in their own ways are stuck in the past and they can't fully appreciate the present because they're trying so hard to kind of regain what happened before, and Faye is trying to find out her identity before she was, put in cryogenic sleep. Spike is pining after Julia and chasing after Julia, and his whole, honestly, show, he's just trying to get back to Julia, and he does get back to her, and then she, it was amazing. And Jet finally tracks down the love of his life just for her to say that she was controlling him and she felt like that she couldn't breathe and she couldn't be her own person, and that was just so lacking. Like, it was so lacking. And I think that it honestly just felt like that they took, like, 2 traits from the character and then was like, okay, we're gonna make him something and we're gonna transform him entirely. And from, like, I feel like that if anime Jet was put into live action Jet, I do think that that's genuinely how he would act, but I just kind of don't like it. I just don't really appreciate it. Next, we're going to talk about Faye. Now, I love Faye. Faye, to me, is such an amazing femme fatale character, such an icon. And, with my, issues with the costume, which, we can get over that. That's not something that, is the end of the world. People do costume changes all the time. My issue is that I feel like they looked at her character design and then picked her character. Didn't watch the show. I'm sure they did. But this feels like that they didn't even watch Faye's character. They just saw her outfit and then decided who she was going to be. 1, Faye was never a bounty hunter. Well, she was eventually, but she was not a bounty hunter when she met Spike and Jet. She was working in a casino, working under a man who was manipulating her. She's an extreme gambler and extreme con artist, kind of like the woman Whitney, the girl Whitney in the show, Matsumoto. She's like her, like the way they did her, that's literally how Faye was. Faye is a scammer, you know. Faye is Sophia Nur, you know, like, and I just feel like that the show really just like did not portray that at all. In fact, it kind of made Faye seem like she was the most pure person that honestly just wanted to find her future. And like, yes, she did want to find her past, like she did want to do that, but she also was so filled with debt and scamming, and I love that about her, and she was so unapologetic. I just did not get the same energy that I did of Faye in the anime. I feel like also the fact that she has amnesia is brought up, I believe, like 3 times, and that's it, you know. I don't know, it just kind of felt very like missing the mark. Next, I want to talk about the good boy Vicious. Now, the thing in the anime that I loved about Vicious was that you never saw him. His character was so like ominous and, you know, domineering that he was scary. And we really don't really see much into Vicious until he has his, you know, Gren is talking to Spike about their relationship. But Vicious is so scary and vicious, you know, and I didn't even think to talk about this. So Spike never had a syndicate name. Like Spike's syndicate name, being fearless, was one of the dumbest things I've seen in my entire life, and I was laughing. I literally had to go back and go on wiki, like the Cowboy Bebop like fan wiki, to just, like, make sure, like, am I crazy? Like, did they call him fearless this whole time and I just didn't know? No, they didn't. That was something they decided to spice in there and add. But Vicious in this, I used to be so scared of Vicious. I used to be like, Vicious is the most horrible villain. Like, he is so just like, you know, so scary. In this show, Vicious is a little sad, whiny boy who has daddy issues and likes to abuse women, and likes to, he's still very vicious. However, he just seems like so whiny and so just like emotional and stupid. And that's not Vicious. Like, I understand you want to add some more background to a villain. You want to make it seem like, oh, why is he trying to, you know, get rid of Fearless? Like, why is he, you know, so obsessed with Julia? And it's just like, I could have done without it. I think that, like, Vicious being in the show as much as he did really took away from the show. And I get it's only 10 episodes, about 50-ish minutes long per episode. I get it. But I just feel like that there was just too much Vicious. Too much Vicious, not enough Ed. Next, we have his wife, Julia. First of all, this is a spoiler, I guess, if you care about this show at all. Julia actually is the villain of this show. And I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it. Like, I kept on repeating that scene in the cathedral so many times because I was like, there is no way that they're making Julia, sweet old Julia, being the literal villain, new head of the syndicate. That just feels so dumb. So dumb. Like, Julia being obsessed with power and her being like, I can't believe you left me with Vicious. And it's like, it just felt so stupid, and it felt so like, you know, that one clip with Lady Gaga where it's like,
I don't believe in the glorification of murder. I do believe in the empowerment of women.
It felt like, also, why did Julia look like Lady Gaga? Like, when the show started, I was like, is that Lady Gaga? And I had to look up the actor credits, and I was like, oh no, that's not Lady Gaga. Also, like, going through the trailer, like, oh yeah, that's definitely not Lady Gaga, but she looks like Lady Gaga, which is really weird. That aside, I just feel like the Julia's character was such a big miss. Like, it genuinely felt like they saw 5 minutes of Julia and they were like, yeah, we're gonna make her the villain of the entire story and we're gonna make her the mastermind. Like, what? And also her being married to Vicious was just so weird and so just like strange, and I did not like that at all. Another character rant that I want to go on is Gren. Now, in the live action, Gren is a bartender slash like assistant manager of Anna's club. Anna, who is supposed to have a grocery store, somehow has a club now, and Gren, instead of being a ex-military feels like he's kind of gay, like in love with Vicious, but it's a whole other thing, who was, because of Vicious, taken and imprisoned and done experiments on, and because of this, he develops feminine looks. He develops boobs. His face looks more feminized. And I feel like that there was just so much deepness to his character, and he is technically a side character. He's kind of like in the background, you know, and that scene where he's talking to Spike about his experience and how, like, oh, like, I'm not a woman, I'm a man, but I happen to have this thing because I was experimented on, and he loves the saxophone, and he's just a very mysterious man, and he's just a stepping stone on the way of Spike finding Julia. But I think that in the show, Gren was just a side character, and I feel like that, like, truly a side character, was just like there, you know, gets beat up by Vicious, you know, is a perfectionist. Like, it just felt like they didn't even care about Gren's character, and they just wanted to add a gay icon, a gay man, you know, that dresses up, you know, and that just felt kind of like a miss, because Gren probably is gay, but trying to perceive like Gren as a gay man that dresses up and dresses feminine, I feel like kind of just ruins the purpose of the character. And granted, I don't know much about gender identity, but it just kind of felt like a huge miss, and I feel like it was such a disservice to the deepness of the story, because the show is very much like a noir type of vibe, you know, with a little bit of western and sci-fi in there, but I just feel like that was just a big miss, and I feel like they could have expanded so much more on Gren's character than him just being the background and Anna's bestie, even though I'm pretty sure in the anime, Gren and Anna never met. Like, so that's another thing. Lastly, good old Ed. Now, this is something fun about me. Honestly, okay. If you want to know how I feel right now, I feel like this. Oh, like, I have this, by the way. It's like Sukuna and Yuji from Jujutsu Club. Yep, you know the show. This is how I feel right now over Ed. Because Ed is one of my favorite characters. Edward is honestly so funny. I identified with Edward, also with Edward being, you know, black in the show. I identified with her very heavily. She was crazy, she was smart, she was a hacker, you know, and was from Earth. Like, I just loved Ed, and Ed honestly just brought so much to the show. And the funny thing about Ed is that I can't even really compare her to the live action version, because the live action version of Ed was only in the show for the last 3 minutes, and I want to use a clip so bad, but Netflix is so iffy with their copyright striking, and if this gets copyright striked, I might like cry. But like, Ed, those 3 minutes were such a big impact, and I don't know if they told that little girl to act like that. I just feel like it kind of gave me the same vibe of, you know, I reviewed the movie Music by Sia. It kind of felt like the way that Maddie was portraying Music felt like how this girl portrayed Ed. Like, I'm upset genuinely over the portrayal of Ed. Like, I feel my blood boiling just thinking about it. And they're probably going to make a season 2. They're probably going to make this like a whole Netflix, like, you know, app thing, you know, so I understand them, you know, pulling from the anime. I get it. But like, this felt like such a huge miss, and that's not how Ed acts, literally, at all. Like, the way she said Spike Spiegel in itself, just really, and also the fact that Ina was with her, which I get it, because Ina's like her dog, essentially. I need to change topics before I get angry again. So, now I'm going to talk about my issues with the show. The things about the show that I was just kind of like having a problem with. Now, I told my mom this before I had watched the finale, and I was like, this show feels like a person watched episodes 1, 10, 24, and maybe episode 5, and was like, yeah, I can make this a show, and made it. It just, I understand. In the opening, it says, inspired by Cowboy Bebop. I get it, but it just feels like it was very confusing to me, because the first episode was kind of almost a carbon copy with a little bit of differences of the first show for the first like 20 minutes. But then Faye pops up, and you're like, why is Faye here? Because Faye doesn't get introduced, I believe, until episode 2 or 3. I could be wrong, granted. But Faye was not one of the first characters that you see in Cowboy Bebop, but in this instance, she was like, she popped up with Asimov and Katrina, or Katarina? I don't know. Regardless, I know her name. Kind of. But with those two side characters, that episode was also a really good episode. It just felt like, oh, is this going to be the exact same, or is this going to be entirely different? And it felt like for the first bit, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a carbon copy. I love this. This is so great. But then it was just like, no, it's not. This was just a little taste of what it could have been, and then it just derails so fast. It felt like that the showrunners, I feel like that they wanted to make a space cowboy type of show, but didn't want to make their own show. So then they decided to be like, oh, we're going to do it from Cowboy Bebop, but then only use like 3 different TV show elements and then make it their own, and say like, oh, it's like this Cowboy Bebop, when it's like not. Like, I think that Space Dandy is better. Space Dandy actually is a really good show, and you should watch it if you haven't watched it. But I just think that it just doesn't really give me like what I want. And I do think though that if you've never watched Cowboy Bebop and you want to watch this, you should, because you would love it. Because you have no idea what Cowboy Bebop is about. So you should watch it. Like, if you haven't seen the anime, but if you have watched the anime, please don't watch it, because you're just going to get upset. Unless if you're not like a diehard fan of the anime. I'd say like if you've watched 2 episodes, then go ahead, watch it. But it just feels honestly like the people who made it didn't care. It felt like the actors just were given really bad direction. I think that it was just really hard to make this show like as good as it possibly could have been, because when you're, adapting an anime into live action, there are going to be some discrepancies, there's going to be some issues, but this just honestly felt like an entire miss. I feel like that they could have done so much better. And I get, the pandemic, and I get, all this different stuff. I understand there's issues, but I just think that it felt like more so of like a cash grab type of show. It didn't really feel like a show that they really were like, we're going to remake this show and we're going to make it amazing. It kind of felt like, we're going to make this show and ruin it. No, I don't think that they had the intention of ruining it. I genuinely don't. And I just feel like that there was just a lot going wrong. But I don't want to just talk badly about the show. I do want to talk about some positive things. So, positives. The show looked so pretty. Like, I'm a film student. Well, kind of. I'm a film minor student. I love the mise-en-scène of this show. So gorgeous to look at. The CGI was pretty good. I mean, I will say, like, it's no different than watching like The Mandalorian or any other sci-fi shows that are being made like right now. I wouldn't say it's any better than that, but I will just say that it was so pretty to look at. And I do think it's interesting that the show did like to keep up the fact that while Cowboy Bebop does take place in the future, it still looks like it looks like the 70s, right? Like, well, 70s or like 90s. Like, it very much feels like we're in the future, but it feels very much in the past, which is the whole point of the show, is being stuck in the past despite being in the future, And I think that they made the show look really pretty. I think that with the show structure, I think that it was pretty good. I feel like it was really slow at some points. I do think that the fight scenes were very nicely choreographed. Gave me very much Kingsman, the first movie, in the church scene. However, it felt like almost I was watching them rehearse the fight scenes. And like, they had direction and they were just slowing it down like a lot. And I get like anime is very, dramatic, very gory when it comes to fight scenes, but I just honestly feel like that the show in general gave me like, it could have been so good, and that's why I don't want to just hate on the show, because I think that it could have been really good, and I really hope that season 2 kind of like wraps it together and really makes it feel more like a classic. But right now it just kind of is not giving me what I want it to give. Oh my god, it's also like 2:00 in the morning, so my brain is fried right now. But I guess that's my video. I know I didn't have a lot of positive things to say, but I will say the show is really pretty to look at. It's so nice, lovely in that sense. And I do think it is a genuinely good show if you've never watched the original. Like, I think that if I didn't watch the original Cowboy Bebop, I'd be like, yeah, this is Cowboy Bebop, you know? But it just feels like a disservice to the original, and it kind of stabbed my nostalgia in the stomach. You know, like 9-year-old Zhariya is like crying right now because of how, like, it felt honestly like I was a 9-year-old. Like, it felt like how 9-year-old me would retell Cowboy Bebop. Like, it felt like that. Not a vibe. But I will say, if you want to watch it, go ahead and watch it. You know, I'm not going to tell you to not watch it. I do feel very conflicted about the show, but, you know, who's to say how someone should feel about something? I'm just giving you my opinions. But yes, that is my video. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up because it helps small channels just like mine. Make sure to subscribe to me as well if that's something you want to do. I will say I'm a very nice person. And I'm also very weird, so I mean, if you don't like weird people, then I'm sorry, I'm not the one for you. But subscribe to me if you would like to. It would be nice. And yeah, I guess that's my video. I feel like I don't want to say anything else bad because hi Netflix, cast me in something. But yeah, I don't know. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Make sure to stay happy, stay healthy, and stay safe, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye guys.